Okay, so there's these three Portuguese guys, and they get up and they get to heaven. And St. Peter says to the first one, "All right, Joseph, one question to get in. I'm feeling generous today. Just what is Easter?" Joseph comes up and he says, and this is my Portuguese accent, which I don't know what a Portuguese accent sounds like, so it will sound like every accent I ever do. It is like when the pilgrim, they come to Plymouth the Rock, and they have a big feast with the... No, that's Thanksgiving. Just, I'm going to circle back to you. Let's just sit down. He got a whammy. Manny, you tell me what Easter is. Oh, Easter is when the fat guy in the red suit, he fly around the world and he give a present to the good of children. And I'm going to stop you there. That's Christmas, but you're kind of in the same ballpark. A little better than Joe, but you're not quite there. Okay, Michael, do you know what Easter is? And he says, yes, it's when Jesus, he had died on the cross for our sins, and they put him in the cave, and 3 days later, he moved the rock, and he come out, and if they see his shadow...
By the way, that is an excellent Portuguese accent. I was impressed.
Okay.
That's like, I thought I was at a family reunion.
Hey, what did the Easter Bunny get for making a basket?
What?
2 points like everybody else in the game, Joe. Where does the Easter Bunny like to have dinner?
I don't know.
IHOP.
Got any more?
No, that's about it. Hey, this is Jacques.
I'm Joe.
And welcome to Carnival Personnel.
Whee!
So, Joe, we've been starting off the last few weeks with my fat shaming. A good week. This is the end of week 3. As this post, I should be on day 1, week 4. But as we record this, I'm on week 3, day 5. I haven't got on the scale to do the weekly weigh down. That's on Saturday. But last week I was down a total of 17 pounds this year, and a good week. But doing the math here, it says I'm still an obese fat fuck.
Obese, really?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what obese is, but I do know what obese is, and I also know what diabetes is, and I'm working my hardest.
One thing at a time, Joe.
So all of our faithful listener know we had our friend Rodney on Sideshow this past Thursday, which all our faithful listener know was too much excitement to have in one episode. So part 2 will be coming out this Thursday. I posted a picture of Joe, and I saw that you liked it on Twitter. My description.
Oh, I forget already.
I'm like, I took a picture of Joe, honestly glowing, talking about whammies and card sharks and all that is TV game shows. And I said, I was with Joe the night his first son was born at the hospital. He wasn't filled with this much pride and enthusiasm then.
You should have seen me with my second son.
Hey, say hi to your wife and my kids for me. So it was one of the more fun we've had recording in a while. It was really great. So a big shout out to the voice of Worcester, our friend Rodney, for making it just a blast.
Yeah, so you can't wait for you to hear part 2 where we talk about the best game show hosts, because Family Feud is I think where we left off, a little cliffhanger. And it'll be worth the wait. And oh boy, just you wait and see what else we got coming up for you on the old Sideshow machine.
Actually, yeah, we just recorded one that might also be a 2-parter.
But we'll get to that later.
Much more interesting people coming down into the nerd scene these days.
We meet a lot of interesting people.
Joe, this weekend I will be making, and I'm going to say it, Easter baskets, not April holiday baskets, because it's a church fundraiser. Actually, it's a charity thing. There was much discussion this week about Easter things versus what did we land on? April holiday or
spring event
things and stuff like that.
That's a whole other thing.
And we're not getting into it, but I did want to point out that I will be making specifically Easter baskets, because it's a church thing, and hopefully while we're there, someone will explain to me how the Easter Bunny fit into. I'm not a big Bible guy, and I don't know. Is the Easter Bunny Old Testament or New Testament?
That's a whole other one. That's like beyond Mormon, I thought.
Because John Smith found the third book of the Mormons. And look, if you're going to make up a religion, can you at least make up a more interesting name than John Smith?
I know. Oh my God, you got to see Book of Mormon. It's such a great show. But what I want to know is how the Cadbury bunny makes that chicken sound.
You don't want to know how the sausage is made. But I want to point out that one of my New Year's resolutions was to do more than just show up on Thanksgiving at the church and where they feed the fine folks there and do that. So I pledged I was going to do 3 to 4 outreach things this year. So I think this is technically the first.
All right, Mr. Humble Brag over there.
No, I mean I'm trying. I'm trying to be a better person, or at least to
the kind of guilt that makes you volunteer at soup kitchens.
Joe, is this the biggest year for movies coming out? Like 2019?
No, 2018 was the biggest year, wasn't it? Or was it 2017? Because each year seems to be the biggest year for movies.
The Avengers, which comes out in 2 weeks.
Yes.
I mean, that's 10 years in the making. Well, actually, the Infinity War comics came out, late 80s. So, I mean, that is 30 plus years in the making. But they've made 20 blockbuster. Each one of them has none of the movies haven't been blockbusters. Even the Hulk did well. I mean, it didn't do crazy well. It did well, and a lot of we talked about where Norton wouldn't do press for it and stuff and he walked away from the franchise. Which I don't know how you would do that, but all the movies. I mean, this is it. And now this week, I won't watch it, but I think you have the new trailer for the new Star Wars.
I don't have it on me, but I've seen it, and it's hype. We have some new friends and some old friends, and some friends we've lost, and some friends that are back.
And the name of it is
Star Wars Episode 9: The Rise of Skywalker.
And the thing here, when I say the biggest thing, this is it. I mean, if this
is it, please let me. Oh wait,
I was gonna go. This is it. Make no mistake where you are. This is it.
Yeah.
Where
are you Loggins or am I Loggins in this scenario? It's like the man and the woman saying, "I want to be Loggins." No, you're Loggins.
But 42 years in the making. From Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, in 1977 to this. So, I mean, I don't know bigger franchises. I mean, Star Wars is the biggest franchise in movie history. The most lauded. I think I can't think of one. Bigger or better or grander. And yes, they're going to keep making, Solo, a Star Wars movie, or Rogue One. They're going to find other stories, but this is it. I mean, it was always a 9-chapter thing, and so after 42 years of waiting, it's out, or it's coming out. And like I said, also the Infinity War. I mean, it wasn't 42 years in the making, but it was 20 pictures over 10 years leading up to, April 25th. So I think it's probably the biggest year.
And we have J.J. Abrams finishing it off, which, I really like the way Force Awakens revamped the passion and the fun of Star Wars movies. You can say what you want about Last Jedi. I have my gripes about it. You have your gripes about it. A lot of fans think that Star Wars Last Jedi was shit, like absolute garbage beginning to end, which I don't get.
I don't get either. But there's always that thing. I mean, I remember one of the gripes, and I've got over one of the gripes that I had, about, the episode 1, 2, and 3. It was like the midichlorians. It's like, wait a minute, that's not how the Force works. It's like, and I remember listening to Kevin Smith a couple of years ago. He goes, the Force works exactly how that film's director wants it to work. So, people are upset when Princess Leia got blasted out into space, that she didn't die instantly, that somehow
she willed her way back into the space shuttle in her
and her strong force. I mean,
a force field, if you will.
Luke. Spoilers? Are we doing spoilers? but Luke, astro projecting himself across the galaxy, and management bought that one, all good with that, but didn't like. Wait a minute, how could he put the dice? And
I hate the dice part. I don't like how the dice dissolves in Kylo's hands after. It's well after Luke had died and stopped astral projecting.
Right, and gave him to Leia and stuff like that.
I mean, okay, now I'm making a connection. Since you're never really gone when you're a Jedi and you die, because the Force, you just become part of the universe. I guess you can say that Luke's force, his life force, still emanated through the dice from beyond, from the other side, if you will. Like, because he could force ghost now, because he's, like Anakin, like Obi-Wan, like Yoda. He can, be on that same plane. So maybe he had the power to keep the dice long enough to troll Kylo.
And speaking of trolling Kylo Ren, that is one of my favorite things, is when Kylo Ren orders all the AT-ATs to just unload on him, and he's just standing there, and he just brushes off his shoulder
I think you've got him.
And then he does that is great. I mean, it is really, I'd like to say, yeah. So, I've learned to shut the fuck up, and yes, that is what hyperspace looks like for the most part. But I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, and I kind of wish you would see the trailer, but I get why you would not. And
it might be hard not to, because it doesn't come out for
December. It comes out. It says this Christmas in this Christmas. It comes out in December, just like the last Jedi. I think did Jedi come out in May? The last Jedi came out in May, or did it come out in December? Because Force Awakens was a December movie.
We don't remember.
Yeah, I think. Oh, you know what? I think they pushed it up from.
Was it before yesterday? Because I'm.
I know. What are we talking about here? Moving on.
Well, looking forward to that. What do we got here?
Happy Patriots Day.
Did we? No, we would get to that. I should probably let off with this after plugging this Thursday's sideshow and talking about last week's sideshow. The Jeopardy's contestant, the professional, and with the sideshow we just recorded, professional sports bettor. Did you watch this guy?
I did, and I will watch Jeopardy, from time to time, just regularly, because it's on the same time every time. But I got a tip from Buzzer Blog on Twitter. They're like, it's a website that follows and reports on new and up and coming game show happenings, and they said, watch Jeopardy tonight. Unbelievable. And I said, all right, I'm in. And this guy who's been a 3-day champion, James, I forget his last name, doesn't matter. He up to that point had won $113,000 in 3 days, which is pretty great. And I watched the episode, and he busted the jukebox.
Well, that's a pretty good Portuguese accent, shows.
He won $110,914. Now, why do I remember that number?
Joe, why do you remember that number?
It was significant to the winner because in previous bets in Final Jeopardy, he would calculate his wages so that his winning total would add up to a date, like somebody's birthday. He's that good. So the 11/09/14 was his daughter's birthday.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He went into Final Jeopardy with $72,000. The other contestants, and not so much. And it was great. And then at the bottom it said "Happy Birthday, Booger," which you have to have Alex Trebek say all these things, and he's like, "Happy birthday, Bodger," and then James says, "Booger." Booger, okay. And what did you wager? Hey-oh. It was like $35,000 so that he could round out his nice number. And so he, I think, holds the record for the largest single-day payout in game show history. He beat Michael Larson's number from Press Your Luck. Michael Larson had like 900 and... No, I'm sorry. He had 110,000 and slightly below what James had won on Jeopardy. But he's still there as of this recording. He's still Jeopardy champion. And, he's just like... He's almost like... He's not Ken Jennings level yet because Ken Jennings had the longevity. He'd been there for like 40-something games. And won, like $2 million or something like that. But this guy knows how to play Jeopardy to his advantage. So he starts at the bottom. Like he'll start with the high amounts usually you start with the top and work your way down. He starts with the bottom and kind of works his way up. And he'll always, for the most part, on the Daily Double, go all in. Like a lot of people are hesitant to big wager large sums of money on Daily Doubles, even if they're in the lead by a lot, because they just don't want to. Who wants to put up tens of thousands of dollars on one question? But on the episode in question where he broke the winning record, the single day record, he on one double Jeopardy question or Daily Double, he wagered $25,000, which is the most that anybody had ever wagered on a Daily Double. So yeah, this guy was in it to win it, and he's a very even-keeled guy, but he's got the weirdest smile. He does this. Like he purses his, like he kind of makes like a perfect like square with his mouth, and then his teeth are completely like lined up. Like
do that again. I don't think Richard could see it.
I'm trying to gross you out.
All right. Good luck.
But I did see it was exciting, and he's, I'm looking forward to seeing more.
They said he was a professional sports bettor. What does he bet on? A specific sport? Did they say? Or
I didn't get into his backstory. Honestly, the only episode I had seen of his was that one. So I don't know too much about his backstory. But yeah, he, like other people we know, go into a game like this with a strategy to win. And he's doing it.
Bless his heart. So here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as people are listening to this podcast, it is Patriot Day. This is the only state that has that, right?
Yeah, it's a Massachusetts holiday.
Now, those of you who are saying, okay, Jacques, we get it. Tom Brady's great. Move on. No, it is actually a holiday that shockingly precedes Tom Brady and the franchise as a whole. I think it dates back to, I don't know. But
probably the Revolutionary War, or maybe like a little bit afterwards, when time had passed. I don't think they established Patriots Day like the moment we declared independence from England. It's like, you know what, we needed another day to commemorate how Boston and Massachusetts played a hand in wresting our country away from the evil grips of tyranny over in England. I don't know why I'm getting so verbose over Patriots Day. It's it's an excuse to just fucking run a marathon, in my opinion.
And we have a friend who does the reenactments every year.
Yes, our friend Steve.
A good friend, whose son, I guess, is going to be on one of the floats. And so you were there when he was explaining the whole thing. Like his son was excited because he got to wear his colonial outfit, but he can't be on the float himself. So our good friend Flo will have to be dressed in the Patriot garb as well.
And look, the forecast calls for rain. So,
but they might have to move it because it's supposed to not rain. It's supposed to be like torrential.
Well, yeah. As far as that reenactment goes, they might move it up to Sunday, but. Honestly, I don't think so. I think they're pretty. Maybe the parade will move, but I think the reenactments are always like rain or shine, unless it's like national weather emergency or a weather emergency. But the marathon's going on. The marathon is like it's either going to be on Patriots Day or it's not. So and this is actually this is the 6th anniversary of the event, and that's the first time that it's actually. The anniversary has fallen on Patriots Day again.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
What a harsh day!
Because it's like it's a 6 years later, and but yeah, I mean it's probably not going to be the most fun marathon to watch, but it's still going strong, and I'm wondering if it's going to be a Kenyan this year or an Ethiopian that's going to win, or I don't know. Place your bets.
You know what I don't want to bet on is how quickly the robot overlords will be wiping us cockroaches off the face of the planet. We talk about this from time to time. There was a big clip that went around Twitter, several months ago, like two almost look like headless dog robots that worked in tandem to get through some obstacles. Like one could open doors and one could do this, but together.
Clever girl.
What's that? Yes, that's right. I remember seeing that, thinking that, and then I'm watching the Twitter today, and they had like a robot that was shooting like not from center court, but definitely like 3-point shots, and just perfect, just absolutely. And it looks like an android, it looks like a humanoid like figure, and everyone, the stadium, it was in Japan, of course it was, or at MIT. Where some Japanese people made it and put it together. And every time I see one of these things, I just scream into the phone, stop. I mean, what, have you not watched a sci-fi movie ever?
What's the end game with all of this? Just because we can make robots that can dunk on humans doesn't mean that we never stop to think whether or not we should.
And honestly, every time I see one of these new inventions and this new great this, and it can do this, and it can teach itself how to do this, it's like that's when, yeah, exactly. Joe's eyebrows just went to the back of his head.
My the scariest like robot overlord story that I had read was when a research team or an AI team had to shut down the project because the computers were talking to each other in a language that the programmers could not decipher. And when computers can talk to each other in secret code, that is endgame. That is the real endgame. Fuck the Avengers.
My testicles just recessed.
We don't want them to become sentient and secretive. So beware.
I'm not sure. Has anything in any movie good ever come from such an event?
I don't recall yet. I mean, I there was Small Wonder, that TV show. I mean, that was pretty uplifting. No, it wasn't.
Moving on.
How do you move on from Small Wonder, man?
You just gotta. I was waiting. I was gonna wait.
La 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 la. She's a small wonder, pretty and bright with soft curls. She's a small wonder, a girl unlike other girls. She's a miracle, and I grant you, she'll enchant you at first sight. She's a small wonder, and she'll make your heart take flight. La 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 la. She's fantastic, made of plastic, microchips here and there. She's a small wonder, and she brings love and laughter everywhere. La 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 la. Da 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 da. Beep bonk.
Thank you. I didn't know there was a second verse.
That's all one verse. That's the entire minute and a half intro.
Minute and a half intro. They don't have minute and a half intros anymore. I mean, writers back then writers today must think it's like, man, you guys have it easy. You had to come up with 12 minutes of content in between the opening and closing
now they
credits.
Just have they have fewer. There's less content and more commercials.
Yeah, okay.
We just don't have theme songs anymore,
which makes me sad.
Right. I mean, what am I going to sing every podcast?
So moving on to the Robert Kraft saga. I wasn't going to put this in sports. So it comes out on Friday, and I hate this. Like, it became over. It would have been sensationalized anyways if he got caught in a hand job sting operation. But what made it front page news for more than a day, what has people like screaming about he's the most awful person, petitions, coming out to strip him of the team, is the human trafficking thing, because that's that's what you heard. You heard from the investigators day one that this was a larger, that this is part of human trafficking. And over the last couple months, people like me have been saying, wait a minute, 150 people have been arrested. The people who own the place have been arrested. Thousands of charges, couple hundred people all involved in this at this point, and that word has never come out. You also heard that, this local police department reached out to ICE and to the FBI saying, "Oh, we're putting together this human trafficking investigation," and both ICE and the FBI looked at their information and said, "Yeah, there's nothing here," or not enough that raised to the level that they wanted to get involved in it. So here it is a couple months later, and people are like, why is Kraft still fighting this? And now the police officially, as of Friday, said, yes, there's absolutely no evidence of any human trafficking, but that makes page 12, page 13 on the Saturday paper, not Frontline, on a Wednesday or a Thursday. And it is still what it is. And it's like one of those things. It's like, oh, this guy got, picked up for having marijuana, an ounce of marijuana, and he's got arrested for 5 years. If he was 20 miles away in a different state, it's completely legal, So it's not like what he did. Yes, in that state, it's not legal. But if it was in Nevada, it'd be legal. And again, it's, the big thing for him is trying to keep the tape from coming out. And that was another thing that was rumored that, surprise, surprise, that the police may have not legally been able to put those cameras in there and have collected this. And people are still, the media and some people are still fighting to get the tape out. It's like, wait, if you violated not just Kraft, but anybody's constitutional rights collecting this evidence, you can't then double, damage their reputation by allowing it to go out. So, yeah. And you hear some people, it's like, oh, and sports people, it's like, oh, I don't want to see it, but I'll watch it when it comes out. Do you have any desire at all to see this?
No, I didn't. So I didn't watch the Hulk Hogan tape. I didn't, who the hell wants that?
No, not even a little bit,
I mean, talk about the opposite of a fappening. I mean, geez Louise.
So that's latest. But somebody was arrested the last couple days that I'm just giddy about. But then again, I'm a little conflicted. What are your thoughts on Julian Assange being dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy?
My thoughts are, man, he needs a shave.
Right? Because every photo I've ever seen of him, he always clean shaven and a suit.
I like that somebody posted on Twitter, this is proof that evil ages you faster because this guy, Julian Assange, is younger than this guy, Paul Rudd, who's 50.
That's hilarious. But what are your thoughts on it overall?
Honestly, I don't really have many thoughts on it. You know what? He probably deserves to be arrested and go to jail.
So he was originally wanted in Sweden over I don't know if it was harassment or actual rape charges. How he wound up in the Ecuadorian thing, I still not 100% sure of, but
yeah, I heard there's some dark money that basically I guess paid off the Ecuadorian government to keep him there.
7 years he's been in there. 7 years, and he can't leave. Once he steps foot outside, and Sweden dropped their charges, but then he was still afraid. Well, sure, they say they dropped the charges, but I don't know if they did. And then with the Chelsea Manning thing, and look, I'm a free speech guy, and I think at one point when WikiLeaks started, I kind of liked that it was exposing corporate secrets that were really hurting people. And then it became part of the political thing. I don't there's other countries that have had problems with WikiLeaks. Ecuador, for one of them, is having problems with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, meddling in their, government affairs and stuff like that. And it was one thing when it was politically, embarrassing somebody or embarrassing a big faceless company. And yes, I'm battling between my views on freedom of speech and him giving helping what he his part in helping the advancement of tyranny in our country.
Mm-hmm. Well, like with anything this complicated, there's always going to be nuance, and it's not always black and white, whether or not it's a good or a bad thing. Like, it can be both. It could be a little of both. It all depends on the application and how they go about it and what the, I guess, motive is, and then, if they're, how responsible they are with said information. I don't know. I guess it's all about intent, but,
and his intent was to just watch the world burn.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
It's also this week, at the end of this week, marked the 100th day of the new Congress led by Nancy Pelosi. And right along as soon as the election was, had, a lot of people like me were like, good, go after the bastards. And then a lot of people were like, well, they can't make the next 2 years just about Trump. They still have a job to do. They still have to do the work of the people. And they have. They've actually passed a lot of legislation. Now that the Mueller report is where it is, we're more than 3 weeks in. They don't have a copy of it yet. Nobody does. You saw Barr this week stonewalling more and a hearing flat out say that, he is going to start investigating the investigators, that he thinks there was espionage and spying. I mean, he is everything that Bloatus wants, everything that Bloatus wants in an attorney general. But here's the thought that I've had like the last couple days. Now that it turns out, they are going after his taxes, they are trying to get the Mueller report, they are doing other things. At the end of the day, Congress can't do anything without the Senate. Congress has passed a lot of things. The House has passed a lot of things that the Senate won't even take votes on, that won't even bring up. And, whether it be the new Green Deal or whether it be immigration or whether it be a budget or whatever, as long as Mitch, McTurtle is running the Senate and can block things from even coming to the floor, and we know pretty much everything's going to go down on a partisan vote, I think the Democrats should go full force of what the things that they can control. If you can control going after, the Trump crime syndicate, then they should, because otherwise everything's just going to be stonewalled. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you can do both.
Right, and they are. But like I said, they've passed gun regulation. The Congress, for the first time and since the Brady bill, Reagan, not Tom, has passed gun regulation. They have not just submitted ideas, but passed ideas. But then, like I said, then it goes to the Senate where it quickly dies. So it's one of those things. If you don't want to, work to move things forward as they have been, then go ahead and do the things that you don't need Senate approval or a Senate working hand in hand with.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure.
they 100 days in, and I'm pretty happy with what they've accomplished, and what they've tried to accomplish, but been stonewalled beyond their hands.
Yeah, I know. Well, I really like that AOC, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, man. She's she sticks it to them, and she doesn't back down.
She's very smart.
Yeah.
And every time somebody tries to outsmart her or embarrass her or something like that, she's brilliant. She's great.
She retweeted that somebody, I guess some organization, did a study that since she was elected, Fox News has mentioned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over 3,000 times in the short amount of time that she's been serving in the Congress.
100 days.
Yeah, and
that's like 30 mentions a day.
Yeah. And gee, I wonder why a bunch of frustrated old white guys would be so enamored with such a spicy, young, attractive female.
My favorite scandal of hers, or the famous gotcha moment that they had, was she in college or high school, and her friend shot a music video that she's dancing on a roof having fun.
Yeah.
look at this. How can this former college student be trusted to lead when she's having fun dancing with her friends?
Right. And it cut to literally hundreds of examples of Donald Trump being a shithead and being inappropriate and doing bad things. Oh, that's fine.
We're
winning. He's too busy winning now.
We already mentioned Julian Assange, but I'm going to go back to it. What is WikiLeaks? I don't know what WikiLeaks is. It's not my thing. Never heard of them. Is what Blotus said about, which I love. I mean, the first second, within seconds of him uttering that he doesn't really know WikiLeaks and it's not really his thing.
I love WikiLeaks. Is that right? That he was
the montage.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not once or twice, but not only saying it once or twice, but going off and I love them. It's great. Julian Assange. I mean, I think he mentioned them every single day, probably the last 6 months.
And on his campaign.
Of his campaign,
yeah.
Right. So everyone's like, I mean, I just love the second something goes south with anybody in his or Michael Cohen, never heard of him, but I'm not even going to do a bad impression or go down the list, but it's just hysterical how instantly he will just.
Yeah, we've established he is a sociopath. He's crazy. Yeah.
And now who is Sam Pattern? Does it name even ring a bell? Because it didn't to me when it came across the news wire today. And I'm like, oh.
Sam Patton?
Yeah. He's one of the many people. He's one of the many witches who pled guilty in the Mueller probe. It technically wasn't the Mueller probe, but it was one of those things where in the Mueller probe, they found some stuff out and turned it over to like the Southern District of New York. He had pled guilty, and sadly, he's not doing any jail time, but he just got a 3 or 5 year probation, like 5,000 hours community service. He helped funnel Ukrainian money into the Trump inauguration party. Right. So
that was helpful of him.
It really was. So helpful that now, and again, it's like, damn it, why aren't these guys getting real jail time? These are real crimes, Oh, I'm sorry. He's white and rich, but still, yet this was one of the witches that pled guilty, but he got sentenced today. We're still waiting on like Flynn. Flynn has not been sentenced yet. That was pushed.
Yep.
But yeah. But that there's so much bullshit going on that does barely even. The only reason I bring it up is I'm not hearing anybody talking about it. And again, it was one of the witches that they found in the Mueller, investigation that bared some fruit. Not the biggest fruit, but yet again, Ukrainian/Russian ties to the inauguration, but there's no collusion or obstruction or.
Ukraine's not Russia. Hello.
No, it's not. It's just controlled by a Russian oligarch that his campaign manager worked for 4 years and seen. Which now brings us, Joe, to my favorite part of the week.
The end of the podcast?
That is your favorite part of the week. And by end of the podcast, you mean the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
No. In this week's Self-Indulgent Theater, I have asked our good friend Joe if he could do one of my favorite voices he does, that of former mayor of Burlington, Vermont, better known as America's Senator Bernie Sanders, reading the lyrics of one of my favorite Beastie Boys, one of all of our favorite Beastie Boys songs, You Gotta Fight for Your Right. So without further ado, Mr. Sanders.
Okay. Thank you, Jacques and Joe. I have one thing to say to the 1% of the 1% out there. Kick it. You wake up late for school, man, you don't want to go. You ask your mom, please, but she still says no. You miss 2 classes and no homework. But your teacher preaches class like you're some kind of jerk. You gotta fight for your right to party. Jeopardy. Your pop caught you smoking, and he said, no way. That hypocrite smokes 2 packs a day. Man, living at home is such a drag. Now your mom threw away your best porno mag. Busted. You gotta fight for your right to affordable health care. Party! Democratic Party! The end. You might hear music when you're listening. I'm not hearing music when I'm doing that voice.
I will tell you, it was music to my ears. You know, I'm going to go dry my eyes while you listen to this week's defunct sponsor.
I hereby dub you the Easter Bunny.
Wednesday, a special family presentation narrated by Fred Astaire.
The Easter Bunny is coming to town today.
Let's all have a happy Easter.
The Easter Bunny's coming to town.
So, turns out that the Red Sox suck, Joe.
Why? They don't. Oh, they do.
You know, 4-9 going into the weekend against, thank God, Baltimore came to town. You know, I think the best thing that can happen to the Red Sox today, the game gets rained out. You know, I mean, they're just awful.
They're not playing for April.
No, they are not. But
long season.
The Patriots and you and I have said goodbye to our good friend Hogan, who has signed with the Panthers. And, you know, I don't know why he got phased out of the offense. I don't know why he fell out of favor with Brady, like the second half. The second half of the season. I mean, his career highlight reel, I mean, with just the short time in the grand scheme of things he was here, I mean, he caught some big, you know, made some big plays in big times.
What was his percentage, like his reception percentage?
You know, it's one of those things where, like, the last, and I mean this, it's like, I don't know, Brady didn't throw to him much, and when he did, if Tom threw 3 bad passes a game, all 3 of them were targets to Hogan, where they were either 5 feet behind him on the ground or just complete, you know, in the playoffs, you know, there was a pass to Hogan that got picked off that you look at it, no matter how much of a Brady apologist you are, it's like, dude, that's not on Hogan, and you might have been mad, or maybe he ran the wrong route.
That's
we don't
the thing.
know.
So, like, if it happens over and over again, maybe there's some sort of miscommunication.
So, I mean, I like the guy. He always, you know, seemed to play well, play big in big games. But you know, he's one of those guys. He didn't go looking for the money. It was pretty clear they weren't bringing him back. So I wish he's one of those ones that, okay, I hope does well. You know, there are some people who leave the team that you're like, yeah, go fuck you. And then there's some guys you're like, yeah, I hope he does well.
Like, I mean, Welker and yeah.
Right. And I hope he does really well for the Panthers because, you know, I mean, even if he tears it up for the Panthers, no.
Yeah.
No, best case scenario, they're an 8-8 team, and that is the best. Tom Brady, who we talked last week, got on Twitter for the first time and trolled the world with his retirement. I don't know if you caught this week in trolling with Tom Brady.
No.
Quick 7-second clip where he's walking out, you know, he's coming out to train, you know, and he has the shoulder pads, everything on, and he's coming out with his trainer, and he looks at his helmet. And I don't know if this was staged. I'm going to have to think it was staged, but you know, because the caption was, well, time to get back at it. And I'm thinking, oh man, he's getting ready for OTAs, which he missed last year, and all these things. And he points at his helmet and he's like, he starts laughing, and he just throws to the side a couple pieces of confetti
from the parade,
from the Super Bowl
yeah.
that are still there. And I first saw that
the Lombardi Trophy shaped confetti
inside his helmet. It was like, a friend of mine in Arizona who's a big Kansas City Chief fan. It's like he just sent the link with the words, "I fucking hate you." And I'm like, and at first I'm like, he hates him because he's already back at work. He's, what I mean? Most quarterback. No, okay, I see. It's just a troll job. So.
I saw Tom Brady took a picture with Leslie Jones. And Leslie Jones posted it on her Twitter.
Nice.
And he responded, and it was like, "Nice to meet you." And she, then of course, like the comments are like, green sick faces from all of Leslie Jones's fans, and like he's the worst. But it's just like, fuck you.
Was it an event they were at together?
I don't know. I don't know what the context
He's not
was.
hosting Saturday Night Live again. Please. He's not hosting Saturday Night Live.
I don't think he is. No, yeah, it must have been some event, obviously. But that was he's making the rounds on social media, I guess.
Bless his heart. And I don't want to even talk about the Bruins. They lost their first game 4-1 pretty bad. By the time this post, they would have already played on Saturday. I hope they're 1-1, but no. It was really bad. Getting into video games, before we get to the random video game review of the week, our good friend Joe, was it last week, a couple of weeks ago, talked about Penn and Teller's Bus Simulator.
I think I mentioned it last week. Yeah.
And then you sent me the link.
of a YouTube clip.
Do you remember how you described the game?
No.
You made it sound boring and tedious. You dramatically
undersold
it. So Joe sends me a link, and some poor fuck plays the game from beginning to end. And if you play the game from beginning to end, it takes just over 8 hours.
Yeah, to recap, it's actually a mini game inside of a Sega CD game that, it was an attachment for the Genesis back in the 90s, but that Penn and Teller had put out. And actually, I don't know if it actually got a real legitimate release, or if just like maybe it must have gotten a legitimate release, because I don't know, it's out there. Sometimes these prototypes can come up and the video game community, downloads it and plays it on emulators or whatever. But one of the mini games is a game called Desert Bus, where your sole purpose is to drive a tour bus of Penn and Teller's from one location to the next through the desert.
Yeah, from somewhere.
It was like, from like, I don't know, somewhere in Texas through Phoenix or through Arizona to California, to Vegas.
To Vegas.
Yeah. And the only way to win the game, so to speak, is to just keep the bus on the road. It's not like you can just like put the controller down and walk away. No, because the bus starts to veer to the right.
Almost instantly.
If you're not constantly have the hands on the wheel, and there's no scenery, there's like a tumbleweed that comes by. It's like that's that joke in The Critic that I always reference, where he's driving on a desert road and he sees a sign after 3 hours of driving, he sees a sign, and the sign says next sign 50 miles. It's that kind of thing. And then if you don't drive the bus properly, it can overheat, and then you have to wait for a tow truck, and then it tows you all the way back.
The maximum speed the bus goes is 45 miles an hour.
Well, if it goes over 55, it'll blow up.
No, yeah, and it's in real time. Like the drive, if you drive and it's I'm trying to think how many hundreds miles. It's like 4 or 5. It's like a 500-600 mile drive that you have to do in real time.
I think you're crossing 2 or 3 state lines
at 45 miles per hour, and the best part of it, here's Penn, in a room, and Teller's like playing the game, and he's explaining it to. It's like there's all kinds of great simulators out there, like helicopter simulators, space shuttle, plane simulators. But really, what does it all mean? You're never going to be in a situation where, the pilot gets sick and you're going to have to step in and all this time of the stimulus is going to help. but you could be on a bus, where it happens, and he explains it, and like the last thing he says, like, be careful, keeps pulling to the left. And so I watched the first like 10 minutes. I'm sitting there waiting for one of the little guys to get out of school. I'm like, okay, Joe said that this milk in the fridge went bad, and I got to try it. And I didn't smell it first. I just took the jug out and went to town. And I'm watching him like, and then I would scroll the bar like an hour forward.
Yeah.
And
you're
then another hour.
You're scrubbing through and trying to find like
anything.
something. And it's
somebody, awfulsome. And then my little guy gets in the car and he's like, what are you watching? I'm like, oh, it's stupid. Joe sent me this. Can I watch it? And then he's watching it and he's scrubbing. It's like, is this all it is? I'm like, yeah. Is this a real game? Yeah. Did somebody really play this? You're watching it, dumbass. What's worse, a guy played it and posted it, that we're watching it. This is our father-son time.
Yeah. So you're welcome.
Thank you. But yeah, dramatically undersold it. As I walked down into the Lyceum today, I noticed that the Dreamcast, is it the Dreamcast?
The Sega Saturn.
Sega Saturn that you talked about you've actually, it's getting some usage and logging some hours?
Yeah, so there's a way to modify it so that you can play backup copies of Sega Saturn games. Because Sega CDs CD games will eventually die on you, so it's good to back them up.
It really is,
especially when you're backing them up from copies on the internet, because that really helps out. So that I jerry rigged it so that it plays backup copies of games for the Sega Saturn, and yeah, there's some really decent games, like some nice. You have to have an appreciation for that era of gaming to really kind of dive into, but they have like really good shooter games. And
is it 16-bit, 32-bit?
32-bit.
It is 32.
Yeah. So the Sega Genesis was 16, the Sega Saturn was 32, and then the Dreamcast, I guess, would be 64. But yeah, it works well now. And it only cost me $300. No.
Do you want to review what you're playing, or you want me to grab a disc?
What am I playing? Yeah, I don't know. You just grab anything. Yeah, anything you want. Anything off that shelf right over there. Yeah, we'll talk about the Sega Saturn if that's what you're going to go for. Or the backup copies are stacked on that shelf over there. See the stack of CDs that just on your right there? Yeah, there you go. It's all legitimate backups. I own all of those games. I just happened to decide to back them up. I didn't. All right.
Guess what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I think you grabbed a CD. Nights into Dreams. Yeah, this is one of the, I guess, most popular games for the Sega Saturn. I'm like Boston. Sega Saturn. It's kind of hard to describe. A lot of these games that were developed for the Sega Saturn have a Japanese flair to them, more so than other, I guess, consoles. But this Nights into Dreams is you play as either like a young boy or girl, and I'm not quite sure of the storyline, but you go into this like dream world where you enter like an open field that has, I don't want to say open field, but there's a terrain where there's like hills and stuff, and you transform into this character who I think is called Night, and she kind of has like a jester hat on and whatever, and she can fly, and you have to fly around like this rotating scenery, collecting collecting gems and going through hoops and stuff. It's sort of like it's kind of like a chilled, laid back kind of game. There's not a lot of like combat
boss
involved.
Fights.
Yeah, exactly. You're just sort of collecting and trying to improve on your time, and you're just enjoying the scenery. It's more of like almost really kind of showing off the 3D capabilities of the Sega Saturn. So picture 1995, you're going from 2D stuff to a 3D environment, and it's like it's intriguing gameplay, but it's, I don't know, it's relaxing to a point. But yeah, I can't really give it a thorough review. It's but it's one of the more popular games. Nights into Dreams. I gotta spend some more time with it, I guess, to really give it a more proper.
That whole going to work shit is getting in the way.
I know. See, yeah, going to work and other things.
What like watching TV? What are you watching, Joe?
What am I watching on television? Let's see. I watched before you got here. I was watching the Conan 25 website with all the remotes. They're just fantastic. You know, Andy at Woodstock.
Eating everybody's food.
Yeah, just the Triumph stuff. Triumph at Hollywood Squares, Triumph at the Star Wars Attack of the Clones premiere. You know, which one of these
calls your mother?
Calls your parents to pick you up. And then he's talking to a pregnant woman. That's the last time that baby is going to see female genitalia. And what else am I watching? Gosh. Oh, I started getting into a little bit Unsolved Mysteries on Amazon Prime.
Oh, are they new or the old
No,
ones?
It's the old ones with Robert Stack. And they've packaged them well where you can, it's just like the old shows, but then I think they also insert further updates, or they sew together like updates from, they would air the original episode and then maybe like months later they'd say update, and then they would go back to that original episode segment about a mysterious disappearance, and they'd say, well, we found the person and here's the update, and thanks to people who watched our show, within minutes the police department in that town got calls from all over saying, oh yeah, we know where that guy is. But then there's even like further updates with text, like for modern day updates. So it's very interesting. And then there's even like still unsolved mysteries where if you know anything, you can go to unsolved.com and give them tips. So
I told you I had a friend whose brother, a bit actor, was on one of the reenactments, and it was America's Most Wanted. And it aired like 3 times, like this thing. Every single time the cops came to his house, because it's like somebody inevitably didn't realize, the burglars didn't actually stick around to do a reshoot and some pickup shots and some ADR on this. That's and at the bottom of the screen it says reenactment. Yeah, that's.
But you know what was also I forgot that they had done on Unsolved Mysteries is during the reenactments they would use the actual victims' parents, or like the woman who disappeared, they would have her parents reenact them going down the dirt road where the car had burst into flames and finding a clue, finding a leaflet that was in their car from a church, and the only way that the leaflet would have left the car is if the windows had been open or if the door had been left open, because the person driving the car always had their windows up, and so that would naturally never just fly out like that. But it's they would have imagine you're going through a trauma. I guess it's years have passed, and you're obviously
still how do you get over it?
Yeah, you're not only doing the testimonials on your couch talking to the camera about what had happened, but you're also now getting a SAG card.
Let's literally take you down memory lane.
Yeah. So it's I forgot how spooky it was. That intro.
Oh, and his voice is just.
If you or anybody else would like to see me naked. Wait, that was the dream I had last night after watching Unsolved Mysteries. He's a looker, that Robert Stack.
Hell yeah.
He was in Airplane 2. Oh no, he was in Airplane 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was he? I think he was also in Airplane. No, maybe he wasn't in Airplane 2.
Yeah, the sunglasses.
Yes.
Right,
He's great. Yeah. But he was a character, and those shows still hold up. I watched 2 episodes and I was completely into it. Wow, yeah, this is creepy, and I wanted to Wikipedia all these stories and how they panned out, but I think they kind of did the legwork for me.
I do. You get stuck down that rabbit hole. I remember I've been in Phoenix for a couple of hockey tournaments on Memorial Day where I've just got caught watching 6 of those in a row. like just gripping. You know what I mean? And it's like it's 20-year-old cases, and I'm like, and the same thing. You got the phone next to you, and did they find the person? Whatever happened? You read about the killer.
Well, it's like Unsolved Mysteries is almost like the precursor to like all these Netflix documentaries we're watching now with like the true crime stuff,
right?
And like these odd stories, and we're deluged with all this stuff now. Like it's almost become like super commonplace. But back then, Unsolved Mysteries was like you tuned in every week to see like what the fuck is up. Like, and there was not just one story; it was like 4 different segments. And presented very well, and they weren't cheesy reenactments. Like you kind of bought into it.
Money,
yeah. You bought into it. I mean, there were some. I mean, you remember Rescue 911?
Do I?
With William Shatner,
the great William Shatner.
Yeah, they reenacted like they did the same thing with like their people. You know, like they had like the victims or family members like reenacting.
Hey, remember the worst day of your life
that we have on tape?
Well, let's go through it again.
But yeah, so what are you watching, my friend? Besides your weight,
Joe, maybe I'm becoming an old guy. Maybe I'm a shut-in. My pick, believe it or not, no,
not Greatest American Hero,
not Blue Bloods, but yet another CBS show.
Is it a current CBS show?
It is a current CBS show.
Okay, let me see. NCIS, New Orleans.
No.
I'm gonna say, oh man, how many strikes do I get?
Just like in T-ball, you eat till you get a hit.
It's a current CBS show. MacGyver.
It's on season 3.
Elementary.
First 2 seasons are now on Netflix, and I'm almost done with season 2.
Oh man. Clue.
The Good Place.
Oh, okay, that's a
Dude,
good clue.
It is so fucking good. Have you heard of this show?
Wait, the Good Place?
The Good Place.
That's not a CBS show. It's an
not?
NBC show.
Are you sure?
With Ted Danson?
I thought Ted Danson was only allowed to do CBS shows.
No, it's an NBC show.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
I felt bad that I'm watching a CBS show. I'm like,
no,
wait a minute, I got to be 90.
It's like a really smart comedy.
Have you seen it?
I saw a little bit of it.
Okay.
I know it's supposed to be awesome.
So
wait, I'm just catching up on Cheers, the first Ted Danson show. Then I got to get to Becker, and then I got to get to
NCSI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the day in the life of 4 people and their neighborhood in heaven. Heaven has neighborhoods, and it's not like adjacent neighborhoods to other things. This is where you spend eternity, and he is what's called the architect of it. You know, he works from the home office, and he designed this neighborhood, and he, greets people, and it's a full vibrant neighborhood with stores and stuff, and it's the day in the life of 4 new people, the 4 new people to this neighborhood, and one of the people, it's 3 years in, so I'm not giving anything away. But one of these 4 people isn't supposed to be there, and is a bad person, and not like a murderer, not a criminal either, but just a flaming piece of shit.
It's good to know that even in heaven, there's incompetence.
Well,
there's people can slip through the cracks,
right? And that's what this is, and it's this person, struggle to stay there, to kind of hide it. And I will tell you, from season 1 to season 2, I do not remember, and this will give something away. I don't remember a show 180ing as much and just becoming a completely different kind of show. And when it does, it's even better. Like, our little guy started watching it, found it on Netflix, and he was watching 2 or 3 episodes, and then Mom watched 3 or 4 episodes. So I come in, there's 13 episodes in season 1 and 2, and I come on board episode 7, season 1. And she's like, "Oh no, you got to go back to the beginning. You have to see this." I'm like, "I'm a pretty smart guy. I can pick up the pieces right from here," and you can. But she's like, "No, I want you to see this one scene from this," and she couldn't find that. And we went a couple episodes back, so I haven't seen the whole thing, but they flash back to the first few episodes anyway. So it's like, I get it. We're about 3 or 4 episodes away from finishing season 2, and I know season 3 is either on now we're probably maybe just finishing now because it's
May.
and hopefully it will be on Netflix soon, or I'll have to get it on demand.
Doesn't Hulu have that stuff? I think Hulu.
The newer shows.
Yeah.
Joe, I honestly don't know the last time I started picking up the phone and I called my sister. I'm like, "Are you watching this show?" I saw my dad the other day. I'm like, "Are you watching the show?" And then he started watching it, and I'm like, you got to call me as soon as you get to the call me after episode 1, season 2. I was talking to my dad. He's liked my suggestion so far. He liked Miss Maisel.
Still haven't watched season 2. Oh, I suck.
Well, he's like, "Oh, I watched the whole thing." I'm like, "Oh, how about when this happens?" He's like, "I don't remember that." I'm like, "It's a 6-episode arc with a huge new character." And then he realized it. Oh, I don't think we watched season 2. But yeah, I cannot more strongly suggest the new one. And it's like, it's a Ted Danson thing,
The Good Place.
The Good Place. It's great.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's beyond great. Like, I haven't seen an episode that wasn't awesome, and the 4 main characters just could not be more different.
Is it Kristen Bell?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she is such her flashbacks to her time on Earth. She is just such a scumbag douchebag, like a nasty person, just a nasty, bitter person. To be around, and you're like,
Can't
oh my
relate.
God, how do you, and so. But like I said, it's one of the main storylines is her trying to find her way to stay there. Her knowing she doesn't belong there, and her quest to stay there. So
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents.
All right. I'll have to watch that in 20 years.
Parenting tip.
What's my parenting tip of the week? Oh, Faith and Bagora. What's my parenting tip? I plead the 5th. I don't know, man. I don't have a parenting tip. What's your parenting tip? Because that's what I'm here for always, is to hear your sage wisdom, your parenting advice.
Well, we'll find out what my parenting tip is or how well it works out. As you know, our oldest one is dealing with some medical stuff. We are leaving here to go back to Boston's Children for the 3rd time in 6 days. This time I'm going to show him, if you don't like the results of something, advocate until you get your way, because this shit is too important. And it's funny because the wife is sending me back and saying, if you have to get arrested, do not leave there until he gets an MRI. So we're setting the tone, and my parenting tip is,
don't take no shit from nobody.
Don't take no shit from nobody when it's important. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you know how it goes.
I'm more the rollover and take it in the ass guy, but to each their own.
Hey, you want to go camping? What's that joke? If you went camping and you woke up and you were so hammered the night before, and you woke up and there was a used condom sticking out of your ass, would you tell anybody? No, man. Want to go camping?
Man, and that's just a preview of next week's opening joke.
All right. Well. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that would be my parenting tip.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
No, not usually.
Okay, well, that's a sage advice, and best of luck to your oldest one, your older one. Gosh darn it!
Well, I still got a spare.
Yeah. All right, that's enough. And folks, on behalf of everyone here at Carnival Personnel, have a happy Patriots Day. And while you're out there watching the marathon, please don't forget